drawn to that. This is improv, by the way. Really drawn to that point about getting started, and I think it resonated with experience that I felt like I had with the group of schools last year, where they come in. Lots of them come in with real ambition about the things that they want to change, and I think we noticed that sometimes that was a difficult start point. It was quite difficult to start with really big aims and goals.
Right.
And I was hearing you say about starting small. What's your sense of what, because it also aligns, I think, with this idea of there's so much going on and there is so much, kind of competing priority. What could starting small look like for our schools?
Yeah, that's a great question. We are big fans, Ian and friends, of what we call micro moves, because they actually end up being the most powerful. But, one really good example, standing in circle at the beginning of a day in a class for 10 minutes and talking about your feelings, like for our kids who live in economic poverty, talking on Monday about something that they found pleasure in over the weekend. It might have been standing by a favorite tree or patting a neighbor's dog or whatever. Doing that practice once a week adds to everybody's well-being. It gets your day off to a better start. We tend to frame all of the prompts positively. We never teach now without having hearing every voice in a circle. And that might be huge for some people who've always been addicted to rows and competition and goodness knows what else. But if you can get people to make a little move like that, it's not huge in terms of your overall repertoire to take 10 minutes a week to listen to emotions and then start building a language of emotions. That would be mid-size for somebody, but micro for others. And if the person who is encouraged people to do this is already willing to try, like we had a kindergarten teacher, she was Indigenous. She trained her kindergarten teachers to have a very meaningful circus.
Kindergarten students.
Her students. And then she got her students to go to the grade 7 class and train the grade 7s. So that's helping and scaffolding and charming because it's reverse cross grade work. And, that move transformed the school over time.
Yeah, and I think that we say, like, formally with the spiral, we start with scanning, right, which is the question, what's going on for our learners? How do we know? And why does it matter? And I think that in a school that, so they've already set their priorities for the year, and let's say it's improving writing, as a school-wide goal, which lots of schools have. Then the question would be, what's going on for our kids in terms of enjoying writing, becoming better writers, so not starting something new, but focusing on that after they've asked the two big questions that we really encourage every school to start with. That's, the first one, can every child in the school name a couple of adults that believe in them and, are there to support them. That one's just for us fundamental. Because we know the importance of that connection with adults in terms of well-being, longevity, all of that. So we're going to start with that, and we're going to move to action with those kids that don't have anybody. So that's number one. And the second question is, what are you learning and why is it important? And we have, I was just reading a couple of case studies this morning to see if I could find a good example for you. And it was a school that had really worked on well-being and connection, and they were able, every child was able to name two adults. But when they said, what are you learning and why is it important? They got blank stares. Math, we're doing math, or we're doing science, that they had no clue and capacity to connect what they were doing in school with life. So in both of those areas, we want kids to be connected. We also want them to see learning as meaningful, relevant, and important. And so that's why we just say start with those two. The other thing then is getting visual representation of the kids' responses. So we talked about the video, but also We love seeing schools where there's visual representation of kids' responses to those questions in their own words around the school, or maybe a poster board or whatever, just to capture people's curiosity and attention. Rather, we go into schools and there's pictures of dead queens or, principles from the 1800s. Well, let's kind of flip that and have this as a place where we're highlighting learning.
Well, they'd have to take our pictures down. That would be very bad. Just to give you a well-being example, it's very common now that our schools teach breathing strategies to young people. And, sometimes they call it square breathing, or, some teach almost a yogic form of breathing. Anyway, that's a micro move, and it's good for the teacher because he or she calms down. It doesn't take forever to do. It's just, so in circle, people say, well, I'm upset or whatever. Well, let's practice our breathing. And then when we ask the content question, what are you learning and why is it important? Those young people can tell us that, I have learned to calm myself down by doing 10 breaths of a certain kind. And furthermore, I'm teaching my 3-year-old brother at home, and he's doing it too. And then we feel, oh, like we get a dopamine hit because this is fantastic. The young person has a way of managing her feelings, and she's helping a preschooler with his, and that feels great. So that kind of micro move makes a difference.